Hi everyone, my name is Elvis Abenda from BEGI'S Law Offices and Chambers. I'm here to talk to you today about trusts and how you can make trusts work for you and for your family, and the very many blessings and good things that come with setting up a trust, especially for your children. I'll tell you a very short story. So there was this time when I was in court, and it was a family dispute between a man and a lady whom they had a child with. And this lady had purchased some property which the man was paying a mortgage for. And when things were working well and everything was fine and rosy, he was okay paying the mortgage for the house that was now supposed to be for the small 2-year-old child, especially when the child grows up. So the idea that this couple had was they buy a piece of property, and this was a house. The man would be paying the mortgage, and once the mortgage has been completely paid off, the house would then be placed for rent, where it would accumulate income in terms of rental income that would now be used to offset the child's bills, and eventually when the child becomes 18, the house would be transferred to her name. And it was working, but now later on, as relationships sometimes be, things did not go as planned and they broke up. And the man said, you know what, I'm not going to continue paying for a mortgage. As much as we agreed that this mortgage is supposed to help in the acquisition of this house for my child, the house is registered in the lady's name. Why should I be paying a mortgage for my ex? And there's no guarantee that even after I've completed paying the mortgage, that was his reasoning, that if I've completed the mortgage, that she would actually transfer this house to the child's name. So that was a dispute, and we faced and we were in court. And the judicial officer asked me, because I was representing the lady, how are we going to solve this situation? Because the man's concerns are valid. And that's when I got this idea. Why not do a trust? I proposed to the court, and everyone agreed that we would register a trust in the name of the child. So for instance, if the child is called Baby X, we would call it something like the Baby X Foundation or the Baby X Trust, or any other name that you want to call it, but it is a trust, yeah? So what would happen is, once the trust has been registered, both parents would then become trustees. And as trustees, they would hold property in trust for the child. So the trust would be registered. It becomes a corporate entity by itself, with the ability to own property and with the ability to have bank accounts. And then the house that this man was to pay a mortgage for was transferred to the trust. So once the trust was established, the man was now comfortable in continuing to pay the mortgage, knowing that the proceeds would eventually go to the child. And that's how the dispute was solved. So I'll tell you what a trust is in a nutshell. So a trust is a business entity and a relationship that is created between two groups of people or persons. The first group is what we call the trustees, and the second group is called beneficiaries. So in a family trust, you'd find the parents become the trustees, or any other person whom they decide become the trustees, and the children become beneficiaries. And now for a trust to be complete, there has to either be property or funds. So if I'm registering a trust, what I'm saying is I am binding myself as a trustee that whatever property I am having, within a specific period of time, I will transmit that property or proceeds from it to a specified beneficiary, and that would work out. or I will administer the property of the trust in a specific way, for instance, renting out the property or putting it out for sale or doing something else, and the proceeds would go towards the beneficiary. So trusts, we know one of the most famous trusts we have is the Safaricom M-Pesa trust. Most of you know about it, where the Safaricom M-Pesa has decided that out of all transactions that M-Pesa does, we find a few coins or few shillings here go towards a trust that has been set up to aid the general public. And now you have Safaricom has created something like the M-Pesa Foundation, the M-Pesa Academy that does that helps the indigent. So that's an example of a trust. Now what we are doing here is we are taking that model of normal business trust and converting it into something that works for families. I'll give you another example. Should you decide that you want to invest in property, you might decide that you want to take education policies for your child, but an education policy does not have a guarantee that once it's matured, it will actually benefit the child. And there is very little what I would call consistencies, and the risk is very high because the moment you stop paying your premiums because of any reason, most insurance policies that are education policies will lapse, and then you lose your investment. So to aid the general public, and now you have Safaricom has created something like the M-Pesa Foundation, the M-Pesa Academy that does that helps the indigent. So that's an example of a trust. Now what we are doing here is we are taking that model of normal business trust and converting it into something that works for families. I'll give you another example. Should you decide that you want to invest in property, you might decide that you want to take education policies for your child, but an education policy does not have a guarantee that once it's matured, it will actually benefit the child. And there is very little what I would call consistencies, and the risk is very high because the moment you stop paying your premiums because of any reason, most insurance policies that are education policies will lapse, and then you lose your investment. An alternative way is through registering a trust and then using the trust to buy property. So when that happens, you register the trust, you buy property, real estate property like land or apartments, and you know what happens when you do that, the property appreciates in value, and once it does that, you can be able to get to sell that property when you need to cash in that investment for the benefit of the child. You can also decide to invest in treasury bills or treasury bonds, in which case those are more secure methods of investment, after which then you can be able to bring in, and get the rewards that you seek to be able to get. So in all, what I would definitely advise you as the viewer is to think seriously about setting up a trust for your family, setting up a trust for your children, and you will be able to succeed in getting a safer, more controlled method of investing for your family, a method which you don't seek to lose any kind of investment, and a sure method that guarantees that whatever proceeds from the investment that you're making will be able to go to your children, and also in the process you can be able to benefit from tax reliefs. If you want to find out more about how trusts will work for you and for your family, please reach out to us and we will be able to guide you through the process. Thank you.